And we built up empires. We stole countries. That's what you do. That's how you build an empire. We stole countries with the cunning use of flags. Yeah. You just sail around the world and stick a flag in. I claim India for Britain. And they go, you can't claim us, we live here. 500 million of us. Do you have a flag? We don't need a bloody flag. It's our country, you bastard. No flag, no country. You can't have one. That's the rules that I've just made up.
Broadcasting from Brisbane, Australia, this is the FOMO Show.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe.
And this is a fortnightly podcast where we talk about the exciting ideas changing the world today and what might change the world tomorrow.
We'll help you stay across what's going on so you don't get the fear of missing out.
You can find us at FOMO.show or by searching for the FOMO Show on your platform of choice.
As always, everything's in the show notes, links to the stuff we talk and about, and timestamps to the relevant bits. You can always skip ahead or find it later.
So this episode, we're going to be talking about what's next for the internet.
Yeah, if you're a web developer, building things day in, day out, it looks like quite a normal pace. But when you step back and look at all of the things that have been progressing for web people, you can't help but get excited about what's going on. So we're going to cover a few of the areas that we think are making really cool progress that will make an actual noticeable difference in the websites that you see every day.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at a bunch of different things. So, for example, websites that don't actually feel like websites anymore, augmented or virtual reality websites, web animation, interactive content, progressive web apps, which I'm really pumped for, Joe.
and yeah, we're going to round it off with e-commerce, digital payments, Web3. We're going to touch on that, and then talk a little bit about the problems that the web needs to overcome.
Let's get into it. So, Joe, what have you been up to in the last couple of weeks?
Mate, I have been moving house. I've been moving house today. All that's left is my computer and a mattress on the floor. And so I'm moving just around the corner. So yeah, that's exciting.
Cool. How's moving gone?
It's been surprisingly good, actually. Nothing to report really. Just boxes have moved from one house to another, and yeah, that's kind of it.
Point A to point B.
Yes. I listened to a really interesting. I've heard people talk about Seneca before. Who's I don't know, is he Greek or Latin? Probably Latin, Roman person. I don't know if he's a philosopher or something. But it was a really interesting audiobook on the shortness of life, and I've decided I'm going to get way more into Seneca after this. I thought it was actually really, really interesting. Just kind of scary, but also inspiring, and really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes. I kind of enjoyed that. What else? I've been working on this super secret project. I spent a week working on that, which we're going to reveal next episode. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, no, I just got to commit. That's right. Feels strange to say, but look, we're going to lift the lid on what we've been doing, why both Joe and I are so excited, and I've been super busy with that as well too. So that's definitely got that to look forward to. And mate, I can't wait to show some of the stuff that you've been working on, particularly because it's just amazing. It's bloody brilliant. But yeah, I've been listening to a book called Can't Hurt Me by a guy called David Goggins as well.
Yeah.
Now, this is I'd seen this book on the Amazon, on Audible for the last couple of years. It had been recommended to me. And I don't know, man. I don't know how you are with motivational type books, but I see these books, and because a lot of people like it, I instantly think I'm not going to like it and I'm not going to buy it. And that was a big mistake by me, because this book is insane. This dude that wrote it isn't your normal self-help, you can be better kind of airy-fairy stuff. This dude is one of the hardest human beings on the planet, but he started out as the direct opposite. So, he kind of takes you on a journey. And the guy that edited it with him, they do this podcast interview style thing to the audiobook. So they'll stop all the time. Like he'll be narrating it and then he'll just stop and he'll be like, David, talk to me about this, mate. Like this is crazy. So and he's sitting there and then he'll kind of elaborate a bit more. And so super cool audiobook to listen to. But yeah, like this guy is all about just working super hard, not cutting corners. So like if you're looking to have something to like motivate you to perform and kind of get a bit of a blueprint for like how some of these people perform at such a high level, definitely recommend this book. And there's a whole bunch of crazy stories in there to boot. So yeah.
Wow. Oh, that sounds awesome, man. Yeah, David Goggins is just absolutely nuts. Like ever since hearing him on the Joe Rogan, like absolute nutter.
Yeah, it's so funny, man, because I'd never heard that episode, and everyone I've told about this book is like, oh, that's the guy that was on Joe Rogan. And I'm like, didn't know he was on Joe Rogan. There you go.
Oh, mate.
But if he talked about even half of what he talks about in this book, yeah, it's a pretty long book. It's like, I think it's about 15, 20-hour audio book, so it's not short.
Wow, yeah.
But yeah, mate, like, so much in there.
Do you listen to your audiobooks on like 1.5 times or anything like that?
Oh, look, I should. And I think it's something that like every now and then I think, oh, I should try and speed this up a bit. But I don't. Like I just listen to them normally. Like I generally listen to them when I'm at the gym or when I'm driving. And yeah, right. You know, so yeah, do you listen to them a bit faster or?
Yeah, I listen to basically everything, YouTube videos, audio stuff. I'll put stuff on either 1.5 times or 1.75 times if they're really, really slow. But yeah, it's just because I like cramming in large amounts of stuff. But you do find that you can miss things if they're talking quite quickly.
Yep.
But yeah.
Oh, mate, I think I should try it because I also love cramming in lots of stuff. So yeah, that actually sounds great to me.
There you go. If only you could do that to your internet speed, hey?
Are you certain that you're private and safe online?
Check out our new resource at FOMO.show/privacy. It's not actually that new, but it's a great repository of our favorite tools to understand and improve your online security.
Yeah, and if you're new to cryptocurrency, blockchain, Bitcoin, all that kind of stuff, you can also check out a blockchain basics series we did way back in episode 2 until about episode 8. And that'll give you some grounding in some of the fundamentals about that type of technology as well.
Let's jump into our feature, what the internet is doing next. We're going to have a look at what's becoming available for developers, like looking at things that are relatively hard to build right now, but are getting much easier. Like if you look at how building websites works and new features on websites, you know, one person does it themselves. They make something new out of nowhere, you know, this new type of pop-up or something like that. And then somebody else tries to sort of copy how the first person did it, and then somebody else will come along, write a tutorial about it, then hundreds of people will copy the tutorial, and suddenly every website on the internet has, you know, the same feature. You know, those animated nodes and lines on websites on the backgrounds?
Yeah, like the compulsory nodes or lines that you have to put on every website now.
Yeah,
like
so
the
like
ones that like move with your mouse.
Yeah. Like that all started in the same way.
Definitely love seeing that on every single website.
It's a great feature, isn't it? But long story short, people make things that are cool, people want to make, and lots of people don't have the time, the skills, the patience to do it all from scratch if it hasn't been done before. But the point is, people are building cool stuff, and there are a bunch of new techniques, tools, libraries. I say libraries, that's like basically something that somebody's already built. There's a bunch of new stuff out there, and let's just take a look at some of the cool things that are coming in. What is cool is like when you're building websites, you've got HTML, which is like the structure language. It has the headings, the lists. It defines all the content. And then you've got CSS, which defines the styles. And CSS is this whole language. It's relatively straightforward to learn. And everything that you see on a web page can basically be, it is CSS, you know, the font sizes and all that sort of stuff. And CSS has been progressing over time, and the features that are available in CSS now are getting really, really good. I mean, you've had CSS animations that have been around for a while, so you can make things happen when you hover on a button and it glows or changes color smoothly. You've got all kinds of things that happen. 3D transforms is something you can do now, like
so
rotating.
what does that involve?
So it's essentially you could have let's say a box, like a pop-up box, but you can rotate it. So you can rotate it along the X and the Y axis. So sort of on a 2D plane, but you can also rotate on the Z, which means you can you can make things sort of look isometric and rotate everything in a cool little 3D way, like having you could imagine having like an iPhone. But rotated sort of backwards and to the left a little bit, so you can, and then layer more things above it. Oh, it's kind of hard to explain in audio.
But it has like the illusion of basically being able to manipulate stuff in a 3D space on your website.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and it's been around since 2012, but computers are getting better at processing it, and mobile phones and all that sort of stuff.
And how does that go for site performance? Like, I know that's like a big thing with you. Is it like, it sounds like to me that so much of this stuff is becoming a lot more efficient because it's built into the CSS, and people have worked really hard on making it work a lot better with these modern browsers.
Yeah, do you know what? I haven't actually looked too into how well 3D transforms work, but from what I'm aware, it seems to be relatively well supported. I mean, it's relatively simple maths that does it. Okay. However, that's actually a very good question. I don't have a good answer for you. But processing power is getting much, much better. Like the graphics that you can get built into a computer that you buy new these days is so much better, even if you're not trying to get a gaming machine, so much better than something you could have paid hundreds of dollars for 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Particularly
with these new AMD chips that are coming out. I'm just like, from everyone I've talked to that's got, because they're in laptops now, and they're just saying that they can run games like without needing a discrete graphics card.
Wow.
Games, and yeah, man. So
that is insanity, mate.
AMD's kicking a lot of goals.
No, we must have clearly met aliens and taken their technology. It's gone that it's transformed that much in the last few years. Hey?
Yeah. What else is happening in the world of CSS? Because like we as internet consumers, we just see the websites evolving and we don't think too much about it. But there's so much of this is like really cool tech behind the scenes.
I think one of the big things, really big things for web layouts, and we're going to see things get really good in the future, are two concepts on grid and flexbox, which are two different ways of doing layouts. Grid, as it suggests, you can do complicated like newspaper style layouts. So you can say, I want one big column, one big row at the top, and then like a bunch of little boxes underneath in different places. So you could literally design a website to look like a newspaper without having to like. How you would have done it before Grid and Flexbox would have been a huge amount of work, and this stuff makes it really easy, and it means that you can make complicated layouts and really rich layouts that will mean it doesn't start looking like a website where it's just like a header, the content, and the footer. You're going to be able to start getting much more rich content that sort of pops out of the... it won't just feel like your regular websites, I think, as we go on.
Yeah, like it'll display information in new ways and maybe make use of space a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it'll make it much simpler code-wise, and that's really exciting.
Awesome. So moving on from like CSS, which is kind of pretty raw code, and a lot of it's quite visual. There's a lot of ways that the underlying architecture for the internet as we know it, like the web, and what we see on all our web pages is changing as well, isn't there?
Yeah. It's been really interesting to watch. Like WebGL has been around since goodness knows when. WebGL is like 3D for the web. You can now run... on a web page, you can build rich sort of 3D items. Now, it all comes down to how powerful the computer is that you're running. But for relatively simple 3D shapes and stuff like that, you can render all that in the web.
Yeah, it's been progressing over a lot of time. And I feel like Mozilla in particular, who've developed it, have been talking it up for a long, long time, but now it's really, really getting mature. And then the other product that they've been talking up for quite a while, which is kind of starting to come into its own now, is WebAssembly.
Yeah, that lets you run, WebAssembly lets you run complex code on the web. So it's basically you can write in a bunch of different languages, coding languages, and get it to just run on the web, which means that you're going to be able to get, well, from what I understand, it means that you're going to be able to run very complex logic, but within web pages and web applications. So a lot more than you can currently do on the web, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, so like we had a moment last week or the week before, I think, where you were talking to me about storing values in memory on the web page, and like I don't think this is super relevant to WebAssembly, but I was just like, it just had my mind blown, because like when I did actual like website coding was way back, and there was no chance that you'd be storing values on a web page back then. But the web as we know it and all the languages that are used have become so much more advanced, and there's just so much more you can do, and that's why we're seeing things like Stadia, which we've talked about before, come out as well. Isn't it? Like, because you can, and even something as simple as Netflix. Like you think of the amount of stuff that goes on behind the scenes with Netflix, and that all happens in your browser. A lot of these technologies are enabling it, and these new things like WebAssembly and WebGL are going to enable that even more as we go forward.
Absolutely. So where it's going, websites aren't going to feel like websites, and think there are so many new technologies that are there to sort of, it's just going to broaden the potential of what you can do with your web page. You'll still be able to run blogs or other things, but the 3D stuff's starting to get in a bit more, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of that later. But there's, with the WebAssembly as well, you're going to be able to run really, rich experiences, and it's just going to go so fast. I guess one of the things that we're really excited about is progressive web apps.
Yes. So my understanding of progressive web apps, and this is just from a broad brush, is that progressive web apps effectively allow you to build for the web, but then what you can do is you can effectively package that up very, very quickly and efficiently, and have people install your web app on their phone and have like a native app experience, essentially.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you can, so for example, so it's basically, you're exactly right. It packages up a web page, and essentially you can install it on your phone or your computer, and it basically saves a lot of what's on that website locally on your computer. And then every time you load, or your phone, and every time you load that progressive web app, it just connects to the server and downloads like the new content. So for example, I don't actually have the Spotify app installed anymore on my computer. I just use the Spotify progressive web app. Or on my phone, my bank offers a progressive web app. There's a progressive web apps for one of those decentralized video platforms has a progressive web app. Yeah, it's really cool. Basically, you could just make your website, give somebody a little plus in the corner of their browser, and it will allow them to add it to their home screen, which means you can feed them notifications. Really, really cool.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to go via the App Store either.
Yeah, and I think that's the couple of the big things, is that you can do all the things that, so like for a long time, people have wanted to design apps and build apps because they get so much more functionality out of a native app through an app store than they do through someone accessing their website through a browser. Like you get that like home on people's devices where you can push them messages, you can send them notifications, and when they open up their app, it's like a contained experience. But with progressive web apps, you can now start doing all that as part of building your website, and so it's going to cut down on app development costs massively.
Yeah, no need to pay a subscription to the app. Or do you have to have developer subscriptions or something to be able to publish them?
Some developers try and swing that. I mean, if I was telling a client, like advising a client, I'd say never like always own your IP for your app, and don't you don't really want to be paying developers for them to develop their own underlying systems and your app, because then you'll have to pay them a subscription. But yeah, like it just means that you can kind of pay developers once and one type of a developer, and app costs, like, mate, website development costs don't seem to be that expensive anymore, but app costs just seem to blow out. Like the amount of people that get apps developed, and it ends up costing them like $500,000, to develop an app. And then they've got to develop the web experience on top of that. If they can
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just make a website, forget the app store and paying your silly fees to be able to list them there or whatever you have to do. It's just ridiculous. Build a web app, progressive web app, look them up. They're awesome. And besides, like, you look at the way the games go on these stores, surely that's just going to, with stuff like WebGL, you're just going to be able to play games from progressive web apps, and it just will feel like a regular app.
Yep. And you can go directly to the source then, so you can download it from their website. It's coming from the right place.
Yeah.
And yeah, you kind of like, I just like that it gives you a bit more independence, like you're not having to go through these app stores to kind of get all your content. You can actually just go straight to the source, download it on your own terms. They control the experience. Oh, it's how it should be.
Yes. I like it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads into the world of interactive web content.
Yeah, well, JavaScript is the interactivity language of the web, and if you want to make interactive content, JavaScript's really the place to start. And yeah, there've been some amazing JavaScript libraries, which are long bits of JavaScript that someone else has already written, that basically helps you skip having to do all the legwork and get straight to making something cool. We just kind of want to share a few with you, so you can see what's possible. I'll start with Tangle.js. This is an interesting library to allow you to create reactive content. Now, this website's been around for years. I would have come across it easily 7-8 years ago. Click on the link and just have a look at the demos that they're giving. It's really, really simple. But for example, it will give you a paragraph of text, saying California has however many state parks, including this many beaches and whatever. The current budget is la la la. But then it shows an example of what happens when you make it interactive. So you could have, in a paragraph of text, which has some numbers, they say, suppose an extra $18 was charged to 100% of vehicle registrations. Then you can actually drag that $18 up or down, and it will update the calculations throughout the paragraph. So it really, when you can just change a little bit, and it changes throughout the document.
That's so cool. I'm literally like dragging amounts and clicking on a word, and it changes the option, and everything changes throughout the paragraph below. It's like all the values change, all the stats change. This is super cool.
Yeah, and they applied this to, like, charts and things like that. But it's just really nice to know that you can just have little calculations and things update. And when you're looking at a web page, so for example, if you were making a recipe website, where you could just update, how many people you want to feed, and all of the numbers would just update.
Yep.
Which would be really cool.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, I feel like this could be used in so many different areas. Because you're effectively just like you're giving user interactive inputs, and then you're changing all the what's put out on the other end based on those inputs, and it's super intuitive for the user.
Yeah. So it's a really simple concept, and it's not even new. This is years old, but it's so ahead of its time.
Yeah. I just don't feel like I've seen this in many places at all on the web. So this is awesome. This is really cool.
Oh man, yeah. So that's been around just as long as WebGL has, since 2011. But yeah, the potential is just so cool.
Now, the next one, Joe, is something I've seen you. I'm pretty sure you've linked me things from this before, and that's Tableau Public. What's all this about?
this is all about interactive infographics. Now, if you just want to be able to make data look cool and you don't have the time to mess around in Excel, and there are some things that Excel really can't do, Tableau Public is free, and it's a great way of making amazing interactive charts and visualizations with data, making boring data more relevant.
Yeah, so it's free to download, and Joe's made a few things with it before. So, for example, actually, do you want to talk about what you made, Joe?
Yeah. I once made this like interactive map for a house building company. We were making like web content for them because I used to work in web content making, sort of whatever you call that. So we took all the data for an area. So like just downloaded all the official stats, livability, average house prices, the schools in the area, the count, like tax rates, traffic levels, and then basically just put that on the map so that you could basically like hover over different parts of the map and it would just show you like updating data for each sort of area. Wow. And it's just like, and you can do so much with Tableau Public. I've seen there are some amazing examples on their website, but if you just have a bunch of data and you want to get some really cool looking stuff out of it, check that out. And you can embed them in websites as well, which is really cool.
Cool. Yeah, no, that looks awesome. And there's like, I'm just clicking through one right now, and it's amazing. Like it just every like the frame that it's all put in looks the same, but all the data changes based on what you click, and you can kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I guess that leads into the next one, which we wanted to highlight, which is D3.js.
Yeah, it's a JavaScript data visualization library. Now, Tableau is the one to go with if you're not a coder, because it's just a piece of software you can install on your computer. I'm pretty sure there's a web version. I'm not sure. I say I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. But D3 is for making those really, really advanced sort of type of diagrams that you'll see on the New York Times website, and like really high value visualizations. Some cool examples would be like an interactive, zoomable circle diagram, so you can sort of click in and go into a layer deeper and a layer deeper, and there are like clusters of information in there. D3.js, if you want to see really cool data visualizations, go to their website and just explore some of the examples. Like there are so many cool type of like different ways of showing data. I love data visualization, so D3 is just one of my favorite
and this
things.
is the time to be doing it too, isn't it? Like with all this coronavirus COVID stuff going on, like everyone's looking for like info and they want to visualize stuff, and I think this is where there's one example here of a visualization which I'm pretty sure I've seen somewhere in the last like month or so, which was used kind of for that purpose. Like there's just like this just seems so flexible, this framework.
Yes, like I want to get my JavaScript way better, so that I'm better at stuff like D3. But I just love looking at it for the time being, because what it can make is incredible. And the good news is, if you're not a coder, but you can do basic website stuff, you can actually still make amazing diagrams powered by D3 using a piece of software called RawGraphs. I say software; it's a web app, RawGraphs.io. And basically you can just paste your data in, and then you can select from some of the visualizations they have and spit out a cool looking diagram, which you can download as an image or grab the embed code, which means that you can get some of the power of D3. So you can do your sunburst diagrams, you can do those, all these random sort of clustered bits of data and whatever. Give it a go if you're interested in data visualization. RawGraphs. And
is all this stuff open source? Like, is this all just been made by people, like kind of JavaScript programmers who wanted to build things for people? Or do you have to pay for some of it, or how does it all work?
Well, RawGraphs, I think, is just a free tool, to be fair. But D3, I'm pretty sure it's open source. Yeah. In fact, I'm almost certain it's open source. Yeah, it just seems that I think it was made by this. I could be wrong. I think it was made by this guy called Mike. Is it Mike Bostock?
Okay.
I don't know if he did data visualizations for one of those big websites like the New York Times, but whoever was building it, they just kept. Yeah, Mike Bostock was the guy, but yeah, it just seems that somebody wanted to make really cool visualizations, made a bit of code that would help other people do it, and just release it to the world. And that is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's super cool, and it's just like what blows my mind about this, mate, is just the amount of stuff that's been developed for the web, which is basically there for everyone to use. Like, if you're a JavaScript coder or you're even just an aspiring web developer, like the resources at your fingertips now to make some incredible experiences is just like it's unlike anything we've ever had. And it's just like the level that you start at now, like you don't have to. Back in the old days, you literally started out with like a notepad document. You called it index.html or whatever, and you just started writing out everything from scratch, you know. But there's so many layers and layers and layers now of stuff that's kind of already done for people. And that just seems to be increasing, you know. Like, it seems like the starting point now for people who want to make amazing web experiences is just so much further on. Is that right? Like, is that a fair summary of where things are at?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, web animation is another of those things that's just really come on in the same sort of way. Like, device performance, as we said, is getting better. So animations are getting better support, wider usage. They're getting smoother to playback. You like, just go on any product page on the Apple website. Like, pick a product, go on the page on the Apple website, and the animations as you scroll, things fade in and out. Like, everyone, like, you've seen them, and like, they are just beautiful web pages. Yeah. And yeah, there are loads of libraries again. You know, these pre-made foundations for. Now, CSS allows for cool animations, but there are some really interesting libraries that are available. One's called a GreenSock. It's a really powerful library for making complex animations. It's used by a lot of the top web animators, fine-tuned animations, complex illustrations that get richer as you scroll. And it's still very early days for web animation, to be fair. It's only been around, you know, just, 15 years? Which is kind of relatively not that long.
Yeah. And where's it going to? Like, how much? So you know, sounds like it's early days, but it sounds like it's really starting to pick up now. And like you were saying, a lot of our browsers can actually support web animation. So, are you seeing a lot of change now? Is it really starting to pick up?
Yeah, there are some. Well, with things like I'd never heard of GreenSock until like a year or so ago, and it turns out that this is like really high performance web animations, and I'd done some web animation stuff before, but yeah, from what's available there, I reckon that the way it's going to work is we're going to move towards much better timelines for building and designing animations on, because right now it's done a lot in code. I know that there is some software like Adobe Animate, which is sort of their successor to Flash. I haven't actually tried that, but it may be one of the ways that's starting to get better with, but. Yeah, long story short, I think richer timelines and tools.
Adobe and Adobe Flash gets me all nervous.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Proprietary stuff as well. Ugh.
Oh, mate, yeah. But,
we don't need any more of that in the web.
We just need easier ways, because designers are often really good at seeing in their head something they want to make. So things like PowerPoint are good because a designer can just drop stuff in, and there's a button up at the top saying fade or move along a line or whatever.
Yep.
Whereas when it comes to in a web page, you've got to kind of put some code in, and then just for a lot of designers, it puts web animation out of reach. Yep. Bringing that in to reach of designers is, or helping designers upskill animation wise is going to be a bit of a one to watch, I think.
Yeah. Well, because I know recently, like, I had to get an animation. I wanted to put an animation on a website, and we got it commissioned and got it done. But like, it was an MP4. Like, it was just basically like a video file. And the reason for that was it's just so hard to get people who can actually do this kind of stuff. Like, it still seems to be super rare, and it's quite specialized and quite expensive. But as more of these tools come out and standards get built, then what we're going to see on websites is just going to increase in complexity and in how good it is.
Absolutely, man.
And then it's just loading code too, isn't it? That's the other thing. Like for page load speeds, it's a lot quicker. Than some of these other, like loading video files, for example.
Yeah, because then you're just drawing little shapes and saying, okay, move shape from point A to point B, done. Yep. And then it's, as opposed to a video file which has 60 frames a second, or well, probably not, but like 30 frames a second of something moving from point A to point B. But yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, great. So another thing we wanted to touch on is augmented reality and virtual reality websites, and we've kind of been into these in a few episodes. We've highlighted a few. I remember there was one, it would have been about 10, 15 episodes ago now, where you could go to like different rooms on the website and see different bits of content based on clicking on it with your mouth. Mouth. It's like Willy Wonka and like Willy Wonka like wallpaper. You go and look at. One day. but there is like that, and that was like an early concept for an AR VR website. But there is actually like quite a bit of progress being made in this space, isn't there?
Right, Mozilla, who make Firefox, they seem to be behind all of the really cool stuff that's coming for the web. They were behind WebGL, which was the 3D stuff that we were talking about earlier, but then in 2014 they were behind WebVR, which was hoping to bring VR to the web, and then they sort of updated that in 2017, gave it a new name, WebXR, basically for rendering virtual worlds or adding stuff over the real world. So it's a set of standards. It helps detect that you've got a good device for it. It renders the scene on top of that device, and then it basically has a bunch of support for stuff like input controls and things like that.
Yeah, and look, that may not seem like a big deal, but VR until now, well, even now, is purely the realm of software really. Like, you play VR games, there's VR programs out there, but like it's got to be rendered by by your graphics card through an actual piece of software that's been developed. But what this is doing is essentially, it's opening up the possibility of browsing the web in VR, and like that initially will probably just look like browsing web pages in VR and having some VR support. But as that kind of grows and dials out, it means you'll be able to have like an immersive virtual experience within your browser and probably interact with the internet in a completely new way. And Mozilla are just building the framework for a lot of that. They're just trying to get the tools there so other people can be turned loose.
Absolutely, and there are some frameworks for building VR websites, and you check out these links because you'll see some demos of VR and AR websites. One's called A-Frame, which is a web framework for VR websites, and then you've got 3JS, which is a 3D library for the web. Both of those have some really cool demos on the website, so do check them out. And a lot of these VR websites you can just explore on your computer, so you can just move around some of these demos in 3D space, and it's just awesome.
I think we're going to get a lot more excited about this as a society once some of this stuff really starts taking off, and once people have the tools to interact with it. Because I think we haven't had that iPhone moment yet for VR or AR where enough people are buying the hardware. So
yeah. R.I.P. Google glasses.
Taken too soon before that time.
Yeah, it's so true. And then Amazon, they've been smashing it. Like, kept their warehouses open, an essential thing. All the regular shops are going out of business and stuff, but Amazon have absolutely smashed it.
Yeah, mate. Well, they've just been shipping more than they ever have. AWS has been going from strength to strength with all this stuff going on as well, and that's just a start. Like we've talked about Amazon before and their kind of move towards VR. Back in like July 2018, in episode 23, we covered it. Yeah,
that was
we were talking
awesome,
about their
man.
like VR kiosks in Indian shopping malls, and we covered one of their other products too, I think, back then as well. Sumerian or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was really cool to see. Basically, they just they allowed you to browse this like virtual world and see all of these random all of these products that you could actually buy in a virtual world. So you wouldn't just, it wasn't like you're walking into a shop, but you'd suddenly be on a hot air balloon ride and seeing all these. It's just crazy, like, and that was 2018. So
and they had people like uploading their biometrics and then trying on clothes in VR so you can kind of look down and see what it actually looked like and how it would fit. And like I think if you had have taken what's going on right now and kind of pushed it forward 5 years, I think a lot more people will be shopping in those kinds of environments, not feeling like they have to go to the store anymore because Amazon are working on building super immersive experiences with some of their software. And I just pulled up the Sumerian site just now, and it looks like they've been doing a lot more with that as well. And their goal with that, which kind of fits in really well with what we're talking about, is to make it as easy as possible for developers to design, develop, publish and refresh VR environments just within the browser. So they're really focused on the browser as well.
Wow. I need to check out Sumerian again.
Yeah. So, I mean, you take that and you apply it to shopping experiences and like purchasing experiences as well. There's so many ways you can go with that because you can just get more and more tactile with what people are seeing and how they're interacting with products.
Wow.
Which for guys, people like Amazon and people like Shopify, perfect.
Winner, chicken dinner. And speaking of buying things online, digital payments. You remember like 10 years ago being able to, like, buying stuff on your phone was pretty tricky.
Yeah.
And then Amazon had like an optimized mobile website and stuff like that. But you'd have to plug in your card details and all that. But now you've got like, it just seems to be so much easier on your phone. You have your PayPal installed and it just pops you across to PayPal and click buy, or even saved in your browser, you've got your card details just saved there.
But no, you're completely right, mate. Like the Web Payments API has made doing payments super easy, and that's a lot of the infrastructure that cryptocurrencies are now building upon. And people are starting to support crypto and Bitcoin payments through is those rails that have been put down in the last 10 years.
Yeah, so there's future potential support for cryptocurrencies in this like Web Payments API, which is pretty cool. So what does that mean? You might be able to eventually have smooth pop-ups, to the wallets on your phone when you need to make a payment on a website. Guess you've got to watch that space, but it's just kind of interesting to see it blossom. So many different payment mechanisms. You've seen Afterpay and all those other things kick off, and Afterpay shares. Imagine if you'd bought them before Corona. Holy.
Yeah. There's also, we've followed a trend from like one of our first episodes almost, I think, of Web3 as well, which is basically blockchain for the internet. That's been something that people, particularly in the Ethereum community, have been talking about for a long time. But what is Web3, first of all, Joe? For those people that weren't with us at the very beginning when we started this crazy ride, what's the idea behind it?
Well, I guess you got to track back to Web 1. Web 1, 1.0, was just like read-only web, so you could just go to a web page and read something. And you could click links, go to another web page. That was basically it. Web 2.0 was like the read-write web, so you could read stuff and you could interact, like, post a picture of your lunch to Facebook or whatever else. That's the whole like read, write. Web 3 is the idea of read, write, and trust. So verifiable information. So using blockchain technology and making blockchain applications accessible via the internet, so verifiable data, so that that what you're interacting with is checkable and valid. That's the basic idea of Web 3.0.
Yeah. Like the idea is basically that you can effectively get the website layer to talk to and interact with the blockchain layer, and where they meet in that middle point, you'll be able to do some really interesting and potentially super effective things. So I know for a lot of the Ethereum guys, it's about having smart contracts, kind of have native support within websites. Decentraland are actually doing this to quite a large extent, where they've got a virtual world that exists within the browser, and they've integrated Ethereum based payments, land transactions, all sorts of other bits and pieces within that system. And basically they say, well, you can trust this because it's if you buy land in here, you own it irrevocably because it's on the blockchain. So we can't take it off you. We can take support away and everything else, but like your actual ownership will always be there. So
wow.
And there's all sorts of different ways that people are seeing that happen. Not necessarily convinced it's going to be the biggest thing at the moment. Like where are you at with your thinking on that one, mate?
Right. Well, I feel like there's definitely a place for having the trust and the smart contracts plugged into the web, but I don't feel like that really deserves the whole like Web 3.0 thing. I think they've just sort of co-opted the name. Web 3, could well just be like AR internet experiences or something like that. That would feel to me more like a Web 3. I feel like making agreements and verifiable information probably isn't as groundbreaking as it might come across. I think it will just be one of those things that naturally becomes a part of the web, but isn't going to be on every website you see. It's not like every web page you go is going to say this web page has been verified on the Ethereum blockchain. I think it will just look when you interact with maybe with your mortgage company or you're doing a legal agreement. It could like start coming in there, smoothly-ish, but I don't think it deserves the Web3 moniker.
Yeah, I don't think people have, like, when they're talking about the problems with the internet or the things they'd like to see, I don't think number one on that list is trust. Read write, I get it. Like that's big time stuff because that opened huge amounts of functionality. But trust, like, is that kind of like a solution looking for a problem? It's good marketing. I think you're completely right. It's good marketing, but I agree, mate. Interactive experiences for me, I think for most users, they'd say that's way more of a big deal than some blockchain integration.
Yeah, that and memes. Like,
yes.
Like if Web 3.0 is probably...
Reddit.
Ooh.
I wonder what that would even look like.
It'd probably look just as bad as 2D Reddit. Reddit is great, but it's just, it's not...
What do you access your Reddit on? Do you have a phone app that you use?
Yeah, I use Slide on my mobile.
Okay.
And I don't really access Reddit on my desktop. I barely access it on my mobile.
I feel like I'm in the same. I feel like I'm in the same boat. Like I use Joey is the one I use.
Joey,
super nice app. Super you can kind of customize it however you want. It actually makes Reddit look kind of nice, which is awesome. But yeah, I basically just use my phone as well.
Yeah,
I don't really use the desktop app. I think Reddit lends itself really well to a phone-based experience.
Yeah,
you can kind of slide across subreddits and
Oh, didn't Reddit bring in? Didn't they bring in some tokens the other week where it was like some subreddits had their own Ethereum tokens or something?
I think they may have. There's so many different reward systems now on Reddit. It's super hard to keep track of.
Yeah. You see people getting gold, and then you see them getting silver, and then they get other things, and I'm like, whoa, I'm confused.
A post has made it to the front page when there's 20 different little things on it. It's not just gold and silver. True. It's there's a snake and then a pencil.
Mr. Cliffy. A whole lot.
Mr. Cliffy. So just before we kind of jump off the Web3 bandwagon, IPFS, I don't know if who's come across IPFS before is listening, but IPFS is this super ambitious project that's basically trying to get everything stored for the web, or a lot of the web stored peer-to-peer. So basically the idea is you kind of decentralize the web essentially, and you'd have like peer-to-peer storage that you could use. Have you come across this, mate? Like, have you looked much into IPFS?
I've seen it in a couple of places here and there, and I think we covered it years back, but I haven't really checked in on it that recently. I'm pretty sure I've come across a couple of files in the last year that have been on IPFS, but I haven't seen much of it. What about you?
I think I downloaded I think it was Vin Armani's book actually, like ages ago. I think that was on IPFS, and it didn't actually work the first time that I tried to use it, and then the link got fixed and it did work. But no, I haven't come across it much either. I don't know whether that's because I haven't realised that I've been using it. Like I don't know whether it's supported in the browser or how that works, but. Yeah, I think it's still quite a way off, but it's a very ambitious project.
So I guess, like, what are the challenges around and the big blockers for making a lot of this stuff happen? Because 3D content is takes up a huge amount of space.
Yeah,
you know, and loading video, you've got people streaming 4K and 8K video by accident. One of our mates actually messaged us being like, "Oh, I've used up most of my bandwidth for the month because." Turns out Netflix was set to stream in 4K by default." That really goes to show, like, we got a ways to go, you know, where you have 500 gigabyte caps on your data and stuff like that. And yeah, what are some of the big challenges and that we have for the internet?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first one is that like streaming has just exploded, like particularly with all this, you know, COVID stuff that's going on. Everyone's watching more and more and more video content on managed platforms. So, for example, year on year, like the third week of March, for example, saw a 20% jump in streaming due to COVID, and daytime viewing hours increased by 40%. So, like, just because more and more people are at home, there was more and more like issues with like these services were getting smashed more and more. And there's actually, like, pretty soon after the whole thing kicked off, Netflix, I think Amazon, and some of the other services as well, all announced that they were cutting bit rates because the internet infrastructure just wasn't handling it. Like, they were just seeing all their users having so many issues pulling in the data they needed because their bit rates were too high. And you want high bit rates because everything looks better when the bit rate's higher.
Wow, I did not realize that. How much is there? How many viewers and sort of or subscribers do they have, and how much do they make off it?
Stats are saying now that there's 330 million collective subscribers between Netflix and Amazon Prime Video. So that's what's that, about 4-5% of the world is now on Netflix and Amazon Prime, which is quite a big deal for a couple of video services, particularly I think Prime because it only started a couple of years ago. The global market for streaming services is worth $180 billion. I think Netflix last year spent $15 billion on content. Wow, and it's not actually that much to spend on content. They must be making a mad profit.
Yeah.
I think they're doing pretty well. And, you know, like it's just a simple model, like simple subscription model. But, you know, like because people are watching so many things, there's just such a need for bandwidth and data.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it's easier than ever to, you know, shoot videos, stream it, edit it, upload it. I see random people I barely even know just like streaming stuff on LinkedIn, like, and they're just sitting there just like chatting to their cat, and it's all uses infrastructure. Hey,
yeah, it does, and there's infrastructure uploading it, there's infrastructure downloading it, there's infrastructure dealing with all the other different services. I mean, YouTube now has over 2 billion users, and Twitch, which we've covered recently, like the amount of people that are serving content on Twitch is just going up quite high every single month, and then the amount of people watching is also going up. And so, like, everything in the world is trending towards using more and more data, particularly as 4K becomes more standard. Like, I think that's something that's really going to shake things up, because at the moment most people are watching it like 720p or 1080p maybe, but then a lot of time
I'm on 480p on this internet, mate.
Well, there you go, mate. Like, it's, you know, and then even like the 1080p, there's now options to run it in like 60 fps, you know, which is more. It looks great, by the way, but like when you see something in 4K, you're just like, I never want to go back, you know. But the problem is,
oh really?
So many of us,
I've never seen it. Oh, I'm such a troglodyte. Yeah.
But 4K, like, it uses like 7 to 10 gig an hour of data,
Holy.
you know, like, and that's optimized, you know. So for some of these other services, when they really start pumping up their bit rate and not having to optimize things as much, it's going to use a lot more. And yeah, like, you know, for 4K particularly, I think they downsized quite a lot during coronavirus stuff because it was just so bandwidth intensive.
Yeah, fair enough. But the thing is, the tech isn't just stopping at 4K. I've seen, like, you've got some of those video cameras that are out that do, I think it's 16K, and really high resolution video.
Yep.
Because people want to be able to shoot, top notch stuff, and then export it in 4K. But yeah, it's only going to get better and better, and more, you know, higher bit rates for that. So
particularly as we jump to immersive experiences, I think, like, as we jump towards AR and VR capability and more people using it, like, it's one thing to watch a video like on your screen. You're used to a bit of fidelity differences when you're watching something on a screen, but if you're in an immersive experience and you're really wanting to experience something, particularly as that we start filming a lot of this stuff in 3D too, which we've covered before, the data requirements are just going to skyrocket. Like, if you want to sit in VR, watch a high fidelity video or experience, particularly with like a 3D video, I mean, you're talking orders of magnitude more data than we're currently pushing through our internet infrastructure.
Holy. That's absolutely wild.
And that's where we're heading. You know, we're heading towards these crazy immersive experiences. We're heading towards super, super high fidelity. So we need to be preparing for that.
And it's crazy because, you've seen with COVID, with the streaming giants shutting, limiting what they're putting out. You know, it's really shown us that the internet infrastructure is just not up to scratch in many places.
Yeah, and look, even in the places where it is coping, like, it's not going to be coping for that long. You know, like, a lot of, like, here in Australia is a perfect example. Like, a lot of areas it's just atrocious and it doesn't work like how you need it to work. But even in the areas that it is, like, people are still maxing out. You know, and people are still, like, all it will take. We saw it, like, COVID was, they had to scramble to make all these changes because the infrastructure just wasn't up to scratch, and it still really isn't up to scratch. But I mean, you wait till more people start streaming 4K. You wait till more people start streaming VR. Like, people are going to be so hungry for data. And all of this cool tech that we're talking about is kind of predicated on people being able to access it.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, and it's not worth it if only 3 people have good internet in a city.
Exactly.
You can't flog them your new fancy streaming camera in 32K.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah.
And things are moving towards real time as well. I mean, there's some places where the low latency is really important. Like, you've got high frequency traders and stuff like that. But more importantly for many of our listeners is gaming.
Yeah.
That's, you want to, when you move your character in 3D, you want them to move and update really quickly.
yeah, particularly as we move towards, like, a lot of these games are trying to build more collective experiences. I mean, Star Citizen is a perfect example of one that is trying to, like, effectively have server meshing so that it's all one world, but you'll slip in and out of all these different kind of zone servers quite naturally, you know.
Wow.
But it's also a Twitch-based shooter, and it's also a Twitch-based space shooter. And I saw recently that that EA, they just, like, announced a new Star Wars shooter that's like a Twitch-based space shooter, and like a lot of those types of games it is super important to have very, very low latency, and that there's an infrastructure problem there as well, because a lot of our infrastructure is kind of held over from 20, 30 years ago, and it's just not really built for a lot of these things that we're asking the internet to do now. And it's something that we need to be thinking about, you know. And I mean, real-time events is another one. You know, we've talked before about some of the like the virtual concerts and stuff that people are having, but it is just as simple as, like, video conferences. Hey,
Yeah. I've had to. I have to just turn off incoming video when I use video conferences at home because I just like my internet just can't support it, and it just means that it's just impossible to go through a meeting otherwise. So yeah, it's just like a lot of the infrastructure isn't built for these sort of video streaming and all that sort of stuff at the sort of scale that it's used on. And it will definitely be more important as we get more interactive. And we just talked the other episode 64, about VR meetings.
Yes.
So that is where bandwidth and speed are going to be really important.
Yeah. So I think the moral of the story is there's all this great stuff coming, and it's super, super exciting. Like there is so much coming down the pipeline that is going to change how we interact with the internet, how developers develop for the internet, and even how we view the internet as like a thing, this collective thing in our minds. But the big blocker is that like there's, all these infrastructure companies behind the scenes which are run by, 70-year-old people or whatever, who like they've built their infrastructure, they're happy to make money, they don't really care. Like as long as they're providing a service and the service isn't really being beaten by anyone else, they're pretty happy, and that's why we've seen so many issues in the last 6 months with people trying to do more with their internet, and like as we move into this next stage, that's just going to become more and more pronounced. When these companies are kind of doing less and charging more, so the infrastructure problem is something that has to be solved to solve a lot of the rest of this. Cool. Well, the internet's heading in some pretty exciting places, mate.
Cool tech there, just not enough speed and bandwidth.
Yeah. If you know someone who might enjoy this, please feel free to share it with them.
You can find us at FOMO.show.
You can jump on our Telegram at FOMO.show/Telegram.
We're on Twitter at @the_FOMO_show.
We're also on YouTube at FOMO.show/YouTube.
That's it for us here at the FOMO Show. Thank you so much for joining us.
If you like our show, why not leave us a rating in your podcast player of choice, or subscribe in your podcast app of choice, or via our YouTube channel. I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe.
And as always, remember,
no FOMO.
I'm a big advocate for, like the little chat buttons down the bottom right-hand corner of most websites. Big advocate for Clippy.
Yes, absolutely.
I think people need to get onto that ASAP.
Yep. I think Microsoft should absolutely readopt. Mate, I actually used word art the other day.
Did ya?
Yeah.
Is it still the same word art from or has it changed?
It's not. It's changed.
Okay.
It's changed. You remember
has it changed?
When Office 2010 came out? You remember that, where word art suddenly disappeared, and it was like, it was instead like glowing text. Yes. That sort of stuff. Like it was like a gradient covered text with a bit of a shadow.
Bit more modern. Yeah.
Yeah, but then it was modern for 2010, and then it sort of
aged.
Yeah, but
do you remember when you used to like fill word art with like background images and stuff?
Oh,
yeah.
Mate,
I used to be a fiend for that. I would just I'd hand in an assignment and there'd just be like 5 different word arts, all with like different background images, and I would just
I do good?
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, I did better than good. And like your teacher would be like, how'd you get it to look like that? And you'd just like smile and like, oh yeah, I'm the word art king. Looking back on it now, it was just vomit in my mouth.
Oh mate, how good.
What could have been?
Oh, mate. Speaking of what could have been,
Yeah.
Shopify shares. I wish I'd bought Shopify stock back at the beginning of coronavirus. If only I'd seen that coming.
They're doing great, man. And they're sponsoring all these StarCraft tournaments now. So I'm
really?
Yeah, because the CEO is a massive StarCraft fan.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
He reckons it taught him more about how to run a company than like nearly anything else.
Wow.
Playing StarCraft. So
That is nuts.
He's been like sponsoring stuff, and like they've been doing all sorts of sponsorships and things for StarCraft tournaments, which has been awesome. So I wish them every success.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because they're pouring money into one of my favorite esports at the moment. So, yeah. May it continue.
I was totally not expecting
to the
you
moon.
to say that. Lovely.
All right.
Oh,
Here we are.
Mate, I have Stroopwafels. Have you had Stroopwafels? Stroopwafels, yes.
Oh, okay.
Mate,
Are they German?
They're Dutch.
Dutch.
I think they're Dutch, yeah.
Are they very serious and direct? What's something that's quintessentially Dutch?
Cheese is pretty Dutch.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would say the Stroopwafel is... it's quite difficult to say, but I mean, outside of bicycles and canals,
Yeah.
I'd say Stroopwafels and
lots of weed and red light districts.
yeah, that'd do.
and a large merchant navy, which was continually harassed by the British.
Yes, and now they focus
Forced into
exclusively on pumping the water out to keep the country above sea level.
Okay, so you've just dipped your toe. You've done the initial toe dipping for filtered water.
Yeah. What do you mean? Does it get better?
Oh,
than
it's
this?
it's kind of like everything, you know. Like you kind of you start off with your $15 Woolies filter, and then and then you'll start reading a bit more, and you'll be like, oh, actually, like there's a bunch of weird like heavy metals that they put into our water supply to kind of kill all the nasty stuff when they recycle it, but like it's not great for the human body because some of it stays in your system for a long time.
Yeah.
And so then you'll go, oh, okay, well, what do I need to do? And then you might look at getting like a water cistern, and then you get like a filter shipped over from the UK or the States that like filters out all the heavy metals, and before you know it, you're drinking water that just tastes absolutely amazing, like super pure, and it doesn't have any of the nasties.
Oh.
But it's like a progression, because there may be another step as well, like that I haven't discovered yet. Maybe after this, who knows?
Ultraviolet light.
Yeah. Actually, that's definitely something that some people do. But like everyone that tastes our water, they're like, "Oh, this is really good water." Like, it tastes so clean. Like it doesn't taste chemically.
Do you have a large list of people who come to your house for water?
Yeah, mate. All the neighbours come over, get our water. But yeah, no, because it's already been cleaned, So like it's already like it's not like you're recontaminated or anything. You're just taking out all the stuff they use to keep the really bad stuff away.
Sorry, mate. I'm just finishing this Stroopwafel.
No, that's fine, mate. Eat your Stroopwafel. I mean, the Dutch fought the British for 200 years to bring you that Stroopwafel.
And I'm eating it with a sense of victory.